Welcome to Six String Folks, where we talk about ways to develop your fingerstyle creativity. Now today's idea is quite a sentimental one for me because it was the first ever fingerpicking piece that I learned when I was just starting out at about 18 years old. So we're going to talk about what makes these chords different, and we're also going to learn a pretty straightforward fingerpicking pattern. Let's take a closer look. So firstly, let's just talk about what makes these chords interesting. So firstly, we've got a D major chord, just the normal garden variety D major that everyone knows and loves. If we take that same shape, slide it up 2 frets, we have an E chord, E major, with a D bass. Quite an unusual sounding chord on its own, but in the context of this progression it works. And that's called an E over D because it's an E chord with a D bass note. E over D. So then the third chord is a G minor. We're just doing a half bar on the first, second, and third strings, and that comes from this G minor shape. I'm just playing the upper half of that. And again, it has a D bass note. So it's a G minor over D. So all in all, we have a D major, an E over D, a G minor over D, and then we're back to D again. Now, what makes this interesting is that normally in the key of D, we have an E minor chord, not an E major chord. The chords in the key of D, just for those who don't know, I'll run through them. We have a D major, the second chord is E minor, third chord is F sharp minor, fourth chord is G major, fifth chord is A major, sixth chord is B minor, seventh chord is C sharp diminished, and then we're back to D again. So we're actually substituting an E major chord in place of the E minor chord, and that gives it a slightly different, it makes it a brighter kind of sound. A D major moving to an E minor, an E major rather, instead of, this would be the E minor shape. If you take the D minor shape and move it up 2 frets, it's an E minor. That's D minor, that's E minor. So a completely different sound. D major to E minor, D major to E major. Completely different, much brighter sounding if we substitute an E major instead of an E minor chord. Now, normally, as we just saw, we have a G major in the key of D. So again, something strange is happening. We've got a G minor, not a G major. And quite a common trick actually is to substitute a minor chord for the major chord on the fourth chord of the key. So in the key of D, 1, 2, 3, 4. You've probably heard this cadence many times before, this change. Often the fourth chord in the key starts on the major, moves to the minor, and then resolves on the 1. 4 major, 4 minor, 1 major. So if you're using the Roman numeral system to label the chords in the key, we've got 1 major, 2 major, it would normally be 2 minor, but now we've got a 2 major, 4 minor instead of a 4 major, and then back to the 1 major again. Now let's have a look at the fingerpicking pattern, because it's quite a straightforward one, and it kind of stays the same all the way through the song with a few little exceptions. So just the right hand on its own, we're going to use the thumb on the D string, and it's going to stay on that D string, and the index finger for the third string, middle finger for the second string, and the ring finger for the first string. So we're going to keep those fingers in position, and the pattern is like this: thumb, index, middle, ring, index, middle, ring, index. That's the pattern. And timing wise, it is a 1-bar pattern. So it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now what's great about this progression is that we're staying on this D open string for the bass notes, so it makes the changes a lot smoother. So just to show you how that would sound on the D major, we use that picking sequence. That's 1 bar. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Then we move to the E over D. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Then to the G minor over D. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then we're back to the D again. So all in all, we've got 4 bars. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the whole thing starts all over again. So that's our cycle. So try play along with me. I'll do it very slowly, so you should be able to follow along. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. What's great is that because we're playing the thumb on the open D string, it gives us lots of time to move these chords around. So you'll notice that I'm actually lifting this D off the fretboard and moving it to this D while I'm playing the D open string like this. Your fingers your chord doesn't even have to be in place for you to play this open D string. So it gives you time to lift them if you want to. I generally lift this even though it is the same shape. You can slide it, but listen to what happens if you slide it. Lots of string squeak. So I try to eliminate that as much as possible. And you can lift this chord just slightly, even if you just lift it slightly off the strings, move it across, keep the fingers in place. Just lift them so they're just lightly lying on top of the strings, move them across and depress the strings again. So and that minimizes the string squeak. Now to get to this G minor chord, once again, that open D string gives us time to move to the G minor. And then we're back to the D again. Now, as I said, that's the simpler version on the first time round. On the second time round, there's a slight variation. The D major stays the same. Now on the E, doing a little pull-off with the pinky finger on the E string. So you'll notice that after the pull-off, instead of going to the index finger, you can do that too. There's nothing wrong with that, that's perfectly fine. I prefer personally the sound of the second string instead. So instead of going thumb, index, middle, ring, index, middle, ring, index, I'm now going thumb, index, middle, ring, index, middle, ring, middle. Then when we go to the G minor on the second time round, I'm putting this pinky down on the 5th fret. That gives like a G add 2, G minor add 2. Very nice sound. And there I am going to the index finger instead of the middle finger. So okay, so far I'll do it slow. What we've got is D, nothing changes, to the E, pull off, G minor, now for those who are just starting out, you can just end on this D chord after that. It's a perfectly legit place to end. So nothing wrong with that. Or you can do a higher sounding D, okay, by doing a half bar on the 7th fret and then adding your pinky on the 10th fret. And that's just a higher sounding version of D. So we've got it just sounds like the sun comes out at that point if you do the higher version of the D, but either is fine. So what I was doing instead of a chord is I was playing a little melody that's based on the D major scale, and it surrounds this chord, so it's really handy. I'll show you how the D major scale goes in this shape, in this position rather. So if we start on the index finger on the 3rd string on the 7th fret, that's the D major scale. And it perfectly surrounds this chord shape, which is really handy. So what I was doing is I was using this D major scale, and I came up with a little melody that goes like this. And then I ended on a 7th fret harmonic on the 3rd and the 2nd strings. Open D string. It's quite tricky to get that sounding good actually. And it just sounds like you're playing these 2 notes, which is the D chord. It's another way to play a D chord. So I'll just bring my guitar a little bit closer so you can see how I play through that melody. I start with the D open string, roll through the rest of the chord, move to the ring finger on the 9th fret, pinky finger on the B string or 2nd string. Okay, so then back to the E string. And then to the B string, and then to the G string on the 9th fret, back to the pinky on the 10th fret, on the B string. So slowly we have and then ending on this harmonic. Now again, you can do as much or as little of this as you want. You can just strum through the chords if you want. that sounds great. If you're just starting out, if you want a bit more of a challenge, do the finger picking. And if you want even more of a challenge, try the little end bit. So that's all for today. I hope you found this interesting and helpful, and I'll see you in the next video.